Hi everyone, it's Rose. It's Good Friday 2020 and we are still in quarantine, isolation, whatever you call it in your part of the country. And I just wanted to take this time to say I hope you have a happy Easter, good Passover, or whatever it is we are celebrating, but we are all in this together. Before we start, I just want to let you know all those memes that are on Facebook and they tell you, don't cut your bangs. Okay, today I cut my bangs. Don't do this at home, okay? They didn't really turn out, but I'm sure my hairdressers, because I have several, will forgive me for this. So don't cut your bangs. I just did this so that my mother wouldn't get upset. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to make Italian bread. It is not hard. It sounds hard. The reason I'm going to teach you how to make Italian bread is that people are hoarding. We really don't have a reason to hoard because our groceries stores are well stocked, but because people are hoarding, like suddenly people like me can't find all-purpose flour in the store. So because you have more time, you're obviously baking more. So let me show you how to make one of the basics. Okay, so this is my mother's bread recipe. I did call her before I came online so that I got all the instructions right. The first thing you do is you want to take, this is a warm 2 cups of water, okay? And what I did was I added 2 of these, which really is 2 packets of yeast, okay? I just happened to buy my yeast in bulk. So my yeast looks like this, yours won't, it's probably 2 packets. So here's 2 packets of yeast in 2 cups of water. In it, you put 4 teaspoons of sugar. The sugar is what feeds the yeast. It's what causes the yeast to grow and it will cause your bread to grow. Okay, so this is warm water with yeast and sugar. What we're going to do now is I have, you see here, a bowl with just a little flour in the bottom. And now I'm going to add half the flour. Half the flour is only 3 cups because we're going to make 6 cups. Now, if you look at my flour, when I poke into my flour, it's not totally, I'm not like leveling it off or anything. It's about 3 cups. It's not like baking cookies or cakes, which is more like chemistry where it has to be exact, okay? This is going to be by feel. So here's 1, 2, and 3, okay? Now, if you notice on the side, I have an extra 2 cups of water. I may use all of it. I may use some of it, but that's what's important is that you have to have it. So I'm just gonna, with my hands, get rid of all the lumps, if there's lumps. And the next thing is however many teaspoons or the amount of sugar you put in, you want to put in half the salt. This is salt. Trust me on this. So with the flour, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt because I had 4 teaspoons of sugar, okay, with the yeast. And you'll see that the yeast and the water, they're getting foamy. And because we're making bread, it will sit for a long time. So it's fine. What you're seeing now is fine. So you see how I'm just going to, like with my hands, I'm mixing in the sugar. The salt, the flour. Okay, mix them all up. And now And I know not everyone has one of these. Your fingers will do, your hands will do, and a fork will do. But I have one of these, and I'm not sure what it's called, but King Arthur flour, and I don't get paid for this, King Arthur flour has all these utensils for not a lot of money. Okay, so now here you have the water and the yeast. I'm just gonna mix it up a little bit so that I can get the yeast up into the top. And what I'm going to do is the first 2 cups of water that have the yeast, I am going to pour directly into the 3 cups of flour and the 2 teaspoons of salt. Now you can use a fork, your fingers, or this, I think they call it a dough mixer, but I'm not really sure. I should look it up. But anyways, so you see how it's kind of bubbly? And you're just gonna keep mixing it until the flour and the dough and the yeast, and it smells fantastic. I wish you could smell. Oh, it's one of those smells that you just make you think of holidays and moms and grandmoms. So you see, okay, so it's kind of like wet, right? But this is where the yeast is. Oh, and it really does. It smells great. I really wish you could smell it. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is, you see I have my little thing of flour here, because believe it or not, I have just given you all the ingredients you need to make bread. That's it. You need flour, you need water, you need yeast, sugar, and salt. That's it, okay? So now this is 3 cups of flour. Doesn't look like it's gonna be bread. So we're going to add 3 more cups of flour. And now I'm going to start using my hands. Okay, after we put in the 3 cups of flour, I'll use my scraper first to try, just, to get it off the sides and mix it all in. But now I'm gonna have to put my hands in it. And this is the best part. There's something very therapeutic about kneading bread. So right now we're just adding the flour and kneading it into the water and yeast. And again, I'm telling you, the smell is fantastic. It just feels, for those of you that grew up in homes like I did, where your mom did this stuff like it was nothing, like my mother did, these smells will be very familiar. If you didn't grow up in this type of a home, do this and give your children these wonderful, wonderful memories, because there really is nothing better. So when I've got it pretty much mixed, I'm going to pour it onto my surface. Now I'm lucky enough that I have is it granite? One of those stone surfaces. So I can use it to do my blending. Now if you see, I seem to have more flour than I need, and I do. And that's why we have more water than I need. I have more flour, and now I need more water. So this is the best part. What you're gonna see is how this develops. So try and pick up as much flour as you can, and then little by little, my mother does this. Like, okay, I guess that's like how you do it. So I do that. And you just fold one side over the other Start blending in the water and the flour. And it feels fantastic. It really does. So right now everything's sticky, and who cares, right? Who cares if it's sticky? You're doing this. It's going to take a long time. This is not one of those projects that you're going to come home from work and say, oh, I think I'm going to make bread. No, that won't work. But now remember, we may use all this water, or we may use just some of it. It all depends on the weather, depends on how dry your house is, how humid your house is. That's why, like, it's so hard. Like, people say, well, you know, just give me the ingredients. I can give you about what you should be using. But see, this is still very sticky. But we're gonna throw some more water on it because there's a lot of flour. And do you see what I'm doing? You fold it and you push it away from yourself. Fold it, push it away, all right? Push it, there, you see that? Okay, it's starting to come together. And I'm going to throw a little more water, and I'm going to throw a little more flour. Again, this is one of those things that you can't go wrong. It's not going to be bad if it's not right, but it's one of those things that you're going to learn as you go. Each time you make it, you're going to start learning what it's supposed to feel like. And I'm going to try and show you that. So you figure what? I used 6, now we're at 7 cups of flour. We're at 3.5 cups of water. We may not need all this water. But the more flour you make, as my mother said, the more bread you'll make. So you can add more flour because you've got enough yeast that this is going to grow. This is going to grow nicely. So I'm going to throw some flour on my surface because it's starting to slide a little too much. All right. So I never, anytime I've made it, have never used all the water. Warm is what helps the yeast. It just goes faster. You know what? If you want, you can use cold water after you have dissolved your yeast in warm water, and then you can let it grow in the refrigerator overnight. You don't have that much time. I have more time, so I'm going to do it all in one day. But you have to figure, I'm going to let it grow, let it rest for probably a good hour each time. So you're going to knead it. Now this is the part. See, I want you just like, oh, this feels so good. It really is. It's just such a wonderful feeling. And in these days of the coronavirus and everything that we're going through, we all need something that's just, you know, take your mind off of it. And this is why I like to bake. See, this is just, it's good physically and mentally. It just makes you feel better. So I'm just going to keep kneading this for a good 10 minutes. And when I'm done, we'll be right back. Hi, I'm back. And yes, I'm still kneading my dough. You're going to knead your dough for a good 10 to 20 minutes, depending on your mood. If you're in a bad mood, the more you knead it, the better. The nice thing about bread is that the more you knead it, the more it breaks down the gluten. So you can never knead bread too much. Pie crust, yeah, you gotta be really careful. Scones, you have to be careful because you don't want to knead it too much because it makes it too tough. But for bread, we want it well kneaded. So I've been adding a little extra flour and a little extra water as I knead it. No pun intended. And you'll know when your dough is ready and when you're done kneading. Now you notice how I turn it, quarter turn, push it against me, half, you fold it in half like this, push it, quarter turn, fold it in half, push it, and this is how you knead dough. And there's no better feeling, really. There is really no, well, maybe a couple of better feelings, but for cooking, this is one of those things that you can do that just makes you feel great. And you're gonna know that your dough is ready to just sit after all this work, because it's been working hard, when your dough starts looking blistery. And mine's not quite there yet, but we're gonna just knead it a little longer. And what's gonna happen is it's just gonna have like, see, it's kind of smooth, but it's getting blistery now. It won't take much longer. And the nice thing about this is that you're gonna be able to knead it again after it sits. Okay, see how nice it's gathered up all the flour, it's gathered up all the water, and look at how nice. See, it's just got a little bit, you know, a little bit of a blistery surface. You can knead it more, but this will do just fine if you're just gonna let it sit. So now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna cover it really well with flour because I don't want it to stick. Remember the original bowl that I used? I'm gonna put flour in the bottom. See how I just tucked it all in underneath so you have a nice round ball, okay? Put a little more flour on top. Put it in your bowl. And now at this point, you can cover it in plastic because you've got enough flour, it won't stick. Cover it in plastic. You can cover it with a dish towel and a blanket, or you can do what I'm gonna do. I have an oven that does have a proof setting, which will allow my dough to rise. So when we come back, I'll show you what it looks like, but you wait until your dough rises. Now look at the size of it now, and you're going to wait until your dough is twice the size, okay? And when we come back, I'll tell you what to do with it after that. Okay, it's been a couple of hours, and we put the dough to rest so that it would rise. And remember I told you, let it get to twice the size. There you go. See what happens? So just punch it down. Now, if you want and you have the time, you can let it punch it down and let it rise again for another hour. You know, it'll turn out either way. I just don't feel like it right now. So my mother won't like that. Okay, so you see, we've got the nice dough. Look at that. Oh, this is gonna be perfect. So, to be honest with you, I don't know how many loaves this will make. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it into 6 loaves. All right, so see? Okay, I've set it all up, punched it down, set your oven. You know, at this point in time, you can like set your oven for like 400 or 425. Hot, the hotter the better. Okay, because it'll rise and it will be perfect. So now I'm going to tell you a secret. When you bake bread, use a dark pan. Okay, I have light pans and I have dark pans, and the light pans are good for cookies. Some cookies, other cookies turn out better with a dark pan. but the dark pan is going to give you a nice solid crust on the bottom. What I also do is, this is cornmeal. So just spread the cornmeal on your pan like this. Because what we're going to do is we're going to cut and form our loaves. That's not cornmeal, that's flour. Okay. Form our loaves, and we're going to put them on our pans, okay? So I would say 2 loaves per pan. I'm not really sure. I think this might make 6, but we'll try. We'll see. Remember your trusty bench scraper. You need this for many, many things. So I think maybe 4 loaves will be good. So what you do, you don't, now at this point is not when you want to like knead it too much. So you just want to make it into the right shape, because this is going to grow, okay? Because we're going to leave these to rest. So see how the bottom is? I fold in all the sides and the top, and you roll it, and then you have a nice shaped loaf. So we're going to let these, I'm going to put that here, and I'm going to make another one, okay? So now just roll it out a little bit so you have the right shape. And when you get to the right shape, fold in the ends and the sides and just roll it a little bit. See how it's nice and blistery? That means it really grew well. Okay, so that's 2 loaves. Here's my next 2 loaves. I mean, you could put these in bread baking pans, you know, like the loaf pans. That's fine. They just, you know, like no self-respecting Italian is going to put them in loaf pans. So, like, my mother would be like, aghast if you did that. So just form them, and that's kind of like the nice thing. The great thing about this bread, and you'll see after it's baked, it is good, like right out of the oven. It is really good if you want to just, you know, cut it up for dinner. And it's fantastic, if you ask my husband, Nick, it is fantastic for Italian toast. In the morning, cutting it up. This is going to be a really big one because clearly I can't measure. So this is what we're going to do with this one. Just keep rolling, rolling, and there you go. All right, so now these are going to be big, these are going to be smaller, but what we're going to do, and this is what I do, and my mother does this too, put a little flour, not too much, little flour on them, cover them up, and then I cover them with a blanket. And I will go get my blanket, cover them, and let them rise for about another hour. And when they've risen, I'll be back to show you what to do next. Thanks. Hi, we're back. I'm sorry, but in the background, you're going to hear the Wizard of Oz because my son Vincent is watching it. But notice our bread. This is after an hour. And see how it's grown. What you're going to do now is you're going to get a very sharp knife. This is a very sharp knife, okay? Now, it wasn't cheap, but if you don't have a knife like this, get the sharpest knife that you have in your drawer, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to slice the middle of our bread. Okay, there you go. See how it's starting to just spread in the middle. This is gonna make it really nice when we go to bake it, okay? So now, this is some beaten egg and a little bit of water just so it spreads more easily. And you're gonna cover, if you listen to my mother, every little spot. You're gonna spread it across all of the bread. And right now it doesn't look like much, but believe me, in the oven, when it starts to bake, it's gonna be fantastic. You're just gonna love it. And the smell in your house is going to drive you crazy, and everybody else. Okay, and like I said, this bread is great warm, and you can just throw some olive oil on it, some salt and pepper. My dad used to eat it with like anchovies, which I have, but I don't think Nick would like it. Like he's already like, he's my cameraman. Nick is not really impressed with the whole anchovy thing on the bread. But olive oil and a little salt and pepper after it comes out of the oven. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna spread some, like I say, the egg, and that's gonna give it a nice crisp crust, okay? And now I'm going to just pause for a second. Okay, I forgot my sesame seeds over on the other counter. Now you're gonna get some sesame seeds and you're just going to cover all your bread with the sesame seeds. If you don't like sesame seeds, fine, you don't have to. And you can like use other kinds of seeds. Like I've seen people put, well, I can't think right now, but like some other kind of seeds that you like on your bread, or you can just throw a little bit more cornmeal on it. But sometimes if you notice when people like they put videos on the internet making bread, and their bread is kind of like it doesn't look really interesting after it comes out of the oven. It's okay, but with the egg and with the sesame seeds, I am telling you, it is going to be fantastic. Now the next part is to put it in the oven. Like I say, a hot oven, 425. My mother sometimes even puts it at 450. She's brave. So I'm gonna say 425, and it will take about a half hour, but I would start checking it at 20 minutes because when it gets golden on top, it's gonna be perfect. If you like it crustier, leave it in longer. It's gonna be a little bit, like more crust. I don't like it too crusty, only because, serious, this is a story from my childhood. My mother used to make homemade buns. She's always made bread. But I am telling you, when my father still had all his teeth, he liked really, really crispy bread. However, when you cut those buns and you put capicolo, salami, and everything in it that we used to take to school, you took a bite and you would like slice the roof of your mouth. No offense to my mother, but she baked for my dad. Now, her bread is wonderful. It's always been wonderful. Her buns weren't great. Now her buns are fantastic because my father doesn't have all his teeth, so he needs softer bread. So when we come back, you're going to see what it looks like after I bake it, and I'll let you know how long it took to get it to be perfect. We'll be right back. And here we are, 35 minutes later in a 425 degree oven, and look at how beautiful these look. I can't even tell you how wonderful my kitchen smells. Now I'm going to cut one of these loaves while they're still hot so that you can see what it looks like inside. And I'm also going to reward my cameraman, who is my husband, with a fresh piece of bread. Here we go. Look at how nice that is inside. Nice crumb. It's hot. And I'm just gonna show you what we do. Here we have some extra virgin olive oil. My husband's mouth is watering. Just a little bit. Well, okay, that's more than a little bit, but it's still good. A little salt and pepper. A little salt, a little pepper, and it is fantastic. Enjoy. I hope you make it. See you soon.